Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
You can tell a lot about a company by where it invests. At ConocoPhillips, we're investing in Arctic science and engineering at the University of Alaska Anchorage. And we're supporting today's students and tomorrow's engineers at UAF. In fact, today, more than 100 of our employees are University of Alaska graduates, and our future is in their hands. We happen to think that's a pretty good investment. ConocoPhillips, Alaska's oil and gas company.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hey everyone, I'm Dave Percy and thanks for joining us for another live edition of Alaska Weather. On the warning chart here we've got one area out, the high wind warning. Yesterday was a high wind watch, now upgraded to a high wind warning. That out for the Juneau area, the greater Juneau area, the greater Juneau area. I think I was going to ask for something, but that's out for winds gusting to 60 miles an hour. Later tonight through tomorrow and to 9 p.m. Monday evening, the way it looks at this point in time. So it's going to stay pretty windy in this area. Again, loose objects possibly getting blown around. Admiralty Island, that area, and also Taku Inlet included in the greater Juneau area. Otherwise, nothing going on here warning, watch, or advisory wise across the interior, up into the central, even the north slope, staying really nice. Wind free up there, blizzard free. Down the coastline, nothing. High pressure out over the Bering Sea, so no warnings or advisories going on out there at all. Looking good out that way for the next day or two. And moving on, one more shot at that. There we go. Out west, we've got a not so impressive storm system here developing off the Asian coast. There's Japan, Sakhalin Island, the Sea of Okhotsk, and all this moisture moving northward across Kamchatka Peninsula, and you can see the bands of moisture going all the way up into the Arctic there across the Russian Far East around a huge area, high pressure, over the northern Bering Sea and up across Anazir there and actually up toward Wrangel Island. That's circulating all this moisture to the north, and then you can also see the return flow coming around the south and southwest side of that ridge, pulling the moisture down through the Bering Strait here. Got a patch right there coming across St. Lawrence Island, and you can see it head south and starts to pull a little southwestward there with the main high back through here and kind of a easterly flow there across the southern Bering Sea, but not a whole lot out there at all. Light winds, variable clouds, patchy areas of marginal VFR, with hardly any IFR showing up. There are some flurries and fog here with this area of moisture extending back up in toward the Norton Sound area, but nothing too extensive, and whatever light snowfall wasn't much at all. Some scattered shower conditions here along the Alaska Peninsula, mostly in the form of snow showers, with these bands of clouds right in this area. And then actually here in the Gulf of Alaska, a little more action going on up over the northeast portions here. Low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska at the surface, and then the upper level trough coming southwestward here. As it pulls down to the southwest, the northerly winds actually kicked in. The winds again, the Matanuska Valley, Palmer, on over to Valdez, and all of the channeled areas in the North Gulf Coast saw an increase in the winds gusting in excess of 50 miles an hour in some areas, seeing a little more than that. In other areas not seeing quite as much. But as that trough pulled back to the southwest, the wind flow aloft beginning to turn southwesterly here, and that enhancing an area of snow over the Wrangell Mountains in the southeast interior. And for tonight though, don't look for a lot of change. Periods of snow, possibly moderate to even heavy at times over the mountainous areas over the southeast interior, mostly to the east of the Copper River Valley areas. But Cordova, Yakutat, you're going to be prone, occasional snow, possibly moderate at times, which means visibilities could drop down to a half a mile. Currently on the 4 o'clock roundup, Yakutat was 3/4 of a mile in snow. And earlier on, Cordova got hit with some pretty good snow showers, and their visibility went down to half a mile. So that's low IFR in those snow showers. Looks like that'll spread into Prince William Sound, maybe into the Whittier area. And anything that gets into Valdez will be quite light, but look for some snow to continue over the Wrangell Mountains. Otherwise, continued gusty winds, slowly diminishing later tonight through the interior valleys here, with high pressure trying to build southeastward. That's going to keep the strong winds going over the Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, Stevens Passage, Juneau area. Again, the gusts 60 miles an hour. Definitely hold on to those storm force gusts through Lynn Canal tonight, and the area's less wind but still breezy down over the southwest interior. Watching some moisture work northward here, bringing a chance of snow into the southern areas later on tonight, but staying dry and clear up to the north. This area's snow again sliding into the Kodiak Island area from time to time, just some light snow and fog kind of right on the western edge of things there. And that'll hold through tonight as it was today, and still looking at some scattered light snow shower conditions to isolated here along the Alaska Peninsula into the eastern Aleutians, possibly even out to Atka, but dry back to the west. Big area high pressure holding over the western Bering Sea. And got one trough back here to the northwest beginning to gather and getting poised to move down into the area. This one exiting the area this afternoon, so the light snow and fog letting up, especially back here to the west. Clearing skies coming in behind that trough. Temperatures dropping well below zero throughout the afternoon in the 15 to 20 below range, and quite cold conditions in over the interior areas, and then that cold air spilling out over the Bering Sea on those northeasterly winds coming down the river valleys and across the deltas out into the northeast Bering, keeping it pretty clear. VFR conditions all the way northward into tomorrow. And we'll see an increase, low pressure down here over the Dixon entrance area, strong high pressure over the Yukon. That's going to continue to drive those north and northeast winds into the northern panhandle. It'll probably be an area of snow. In fact, the rain I have here may actually be a little too far to the north. Doesn't look like as much warm air is going to come up with this storm system as what I thought earlier. So probably just mixed rain and snow. Freezing levels will lift a little bit, but not very far. Probably anything that falls down to sea level will be of the heavy wet variety over the southern areas. Definitely not so north of this front. It'll be probably more drier with the strong winds here, and then cutting off quite abruptly farther north than that, and nothing at all except the winds over the northern southeast coast areas. Of course, Juneau, Haines, Skagway staying quite windy and cold. Look for it to probably let up there over the Yakutat area possibly. The snow continuing over the area tonight, and then relocating over western Prince William Sound for the most part. I think it'll drift into the east side of the Kenai Peninsula. That means Portage, Seward, not a great pattern for snow in Seward, but some of that could spill into the area, and then that'll slide right on down across Kodiak Island. So look for periods of snow tomorrow here, especially on the east side of the island. Could see some accumulations with that. I think the warmer air will keep off to the west there, so you'll stay in the cold northeast winds, and a little bit more in the way of snow shower, especially early on. A batch of snow showers or just solid snow moving across the Alaska Peninsula into the eastern Aleutians, and then that'll tend to scatter out as that upper system pulls off to the south into the afternoon. Clear and breezy, cold along the southwest coast, but good VFR. A lot of sunshine tomorrow over the interior. Good February sunshine, Cook Inlet, all the way up to about the Brooks Range. And then this next front, the first in a couple, they'll be coming down, just bringing a chance of snow to the central Arctic coast. Maybe a piece of that moisture breaking off in advance of that earlier in the day, bringing some light snow and lower flying conditions. Definitely some ceilings there onto the north side of the Brooks Range up there, but staying good down to the south. And the Bering Sea, just some areas of clouds out to the west there, and the winds diminishing again. Another couple of light wind days, not only tomorrow, but for Tuesday as well, out over the western Aleutians. Maybe a slight chance of rain with that weak front trying to push into the area towards Shemya, but you can see high pressure holding out in this out over here over the Bering Sea. Kind of a weak low up in this area, but high pressure extending all the way up into the Arctic, and that's circulating colder air, much colder air, down into and across the southern interior. This is the leading edge of the first batch that's going to spread some chilly air into the southwest interior, with the Arctic front right up about this position on Tuesday. And so look for some light snow developing along the western central Alaska range on down to the Kilbrook Mountain areas. Of course, that cold air coming out over the open water, picking up a fair amount of moisture. So snow and blowing snow conditions developing for the Alaska Peninsula, Unalaska, and Nikolsky, especially on the Bering Sea side. One of those situations you're looking at IFR to low IFR on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, breaking out the VFR, say, for Sand Point, but pretty gusty winds could blow that around a little bit, particularly in those windy areas such as King Cove. And the wind's letting up here, not only tomorrow, but into Tuesday as well, with this system coming down from the north and the upper level winds tending to pull back to the southwest. This gradient's going to relax along the coastline. Still some outflow winds, but not quite as strong as they had been, probably letting up even in the Matanuska Valley. Valdez, kind of a gusty wind situation, really just gap winds, nothing extending too far out of the Copper River Delta, for example. And staying windy though again, but probably bringing it down to gale force winds over the northern southeast coast. Still a chance of snow here over the southern areas. One low pressure area moving inland, another one develops and comes up toward the Queen Charlotte. So that's going to make for a pretty good, possibly, snow situation here over the southern southeast coast. Possibly could become mixed with rain. Heidelberg over to Annette, Metlakatla, but areas north of there definitely will be prone to seeing some snow accumulations. Then again, it just cuts off quite abruptly over the central panhandle, stays clear and cold. Up to the north, southeast part of the state, clear and some sunshine. And again, much colder temperatures. There's some serious cold air behind this next Arctic front up here, right across the Seward Peninsula, up toward Kaktovik. You'll probably see some blowing snow and winds gusting to 40, 45 miles an hour as that passes. And then this trough back here, that's associated with the core of the cold air, and that whole system will be coming southward and should be by Wednesday night and into Thursday, see some really cold temperatures right down into the southwest, west central interior. So that means heavy freezing spray, strong northerly winds, sub-zero temperatures coming down over the eastern Bering Sea areas. Otherwise, this afternoon, temperatures were in the 20s there for the southeast coast to lower 30s in the down toward Prince of Wales Island area. 20s along the North Gulf Coast, lower 20s, the Kenai Peninsula. Teens in the Susitna Valley to 0 or a little below across the Copper River Basin areas, with the snow again mostly falling over the eastern portion of that zone. Below 0 in the Tanana Valley areas, and farther to the north, that's where the colder temperatures are. Afternoon reading at 4 o'clock of 27 below at Fort Yukon. And Eagle at minus 18, they came up from a low of 38 below this morning, both at Eagle and Fort Yukon. About the same in Arctic Village, and temperature dropping 40 to 45 below there tonight. And temperatures again falling this afternoon into the mid-teens below 0, but Point Lay still at 0, single numbers here. Kind of a range, Kotzebue 7 degrees, but over at Deering 18, minus 8 at Selawik, 25 at Nome, and 7 at Shishmaref, 19 Savunga. Single numbers here right down into the mid and lower Yukon Kuskokwim Delta areas. McGrath carrying 8, while Bethel had 10, 18 out at, I believe that's, well, I'll say it's Makoriak, 30 both at St. Paul and St. George, mid-30s over the eastern Aleutians all the way out to Shemya, and 32 at Kodiak. For lows tonight, again, 35 to 45 below here over the eastern interior, and mid-minus 20s in the central areas, up to the Arctic coast, a little below 0 to a little above there for the Seward Peninsula. And you can see below 0 temperatures right down into the lower Kuskokwim Delta areas there, a little above in Bristol Bay. Some areas here, south central Alaska, dropping below 0 in the wind-sheltered areas. Otherwise, teens along the coast and teens and 20s for the Panhandle. For highs tomorrow, staying cold again, well below 0 over the eastern interior and generally below 0 over the west central areas, up to the Arctic coast to teens again over the Bering Sea, and teens for Bristol Bay, 20s for the Alaska Peninsula, 30s about like today for the Aleutians, and staying cold here over the southeast coast. For the flying weather, again, IFR definitely with the snow moving into the southern southeast coast tomorrow, then breaking out to VFR, but pretty turbulent conditions there over the northern panhandle, those outflow winds continuing. And it looks like this area of lower stuff will shift westward and be into Prince William Sound right up to the east side of the Kenai Peninsula down along the coast, grazing Kodiak Island on the east side, which should be VFR through Shelikof Strait. IFR again, this lower condition will be early in the day, and then that'll break out and improve during the afternoon hours. IFR to marginal VFR north of the Brooks Range, and a couple of bands passing through the area there. And for passes, marginal becoming IFR on the northern approach of Anatuvik, and about the same forecast for Adigan. Lowest conditions developing on the north side, better to the south. Lake Clark and Merrill wide open. Ceilings visibility is unlimited for rainy, windy. Mentasta, Isabel, all VFR. Tanita wide open. Portage though, east side, marginal VFR, even possibility becoming IFR on that east side. And Chilkoot and White though, VFR. Freezing levels, not much to talk about here at the surface down off the coast, cutting in across the southern panhandle. Warmer air trying to come northward, but not making it. And a little bit warmer air out here over the western Aleutians, but nothing like it had been in the previous days. Icing threats, again, those systems coming in to the north there, bringing some threats up in that area. Icing free here down to the south. Some of this moisture may bring some icing in over the southern Kenai Peninsula areas. And watch for an increase in icing threats over the southern southeast coast as well. Tomorrow shows a trough here right down into the Gulf of Alaska. Northeast winds coming around that. This jet coming over the top of the high and that upper level low, that's going to come right down through the west central interior throughout the upcoming week here and bring very cold temperatures with it as it comes southward. Meanwhile, northeasterlies 30 to 45 knots, both at 9 and 3,000 feet here. So with that, looking at occasional moderate chop, Kodiak Island, all across the southwest coast, Nunivak Island, southeast Bering Sea to the eastern Aleutians as far west as Atka. And then mechanical turbulence all the way along the coast down across the panhandle. A little bumpier up there along the Arctic coast, but nothing too serious. And after the break, I'll be back with a marine forecast.
The beach on the southeast side of Montague Island stretches for nearly 80 miles of pristine wilderness. At least it looks pristine from a few thousand feet up. As our helicopter descends towards the shore, big chunks of white styrofoam come into view.
You see all the big globs of styrofoam? That's all tsunami debris. Yeah, there's definitely there's more styrofoam out here. There's no question.
Chris Pallister would know. He's president of the nonprofit Gulf of Alaska Keeper. The group has been cleaning up marine debris that washes onto Alaska's shores for 11 years. And when the tsunami debris began arriving last spring, their job got a whole lot harder. Pallister has visited Montague Island nearly a dozen times since then. And by the time we land and step onto the pebble beach, he's shaking his head in disgust.
I mean, you're basically standing in a landfill out here.
Pallister points to an area scattered with styrofoam bits smaller than packing peanuts.
So you see what's happening here with all the crushed up styrofoam now? This is what we're worried about. This styrofoam's just going to get all ground up. And you can see there's just be billions, trillions of little bits of styrofoam scattered all over everything.
The smaller it gets, the more concerning it is.
The smaller it gets, little pieces like this, it's virtually impossible to clean it up. I mean, to clean this up right here, you have to take out all this organic matter with it, and you know, extrapolate that all up and down this coastline. It's kind of an impossible job.
The trash is not just an eyesore. Pallister says voles, birds, and even bears are eating the styrofoam and plastic. He's also worried about chemicals. Among the debris, he finds containers that held kerosene, gas, and other petroleum products. Even the little containers worry him. Sifting through the trash, he picks up a small blue bottle and unscrews the cap to inspect its contents.
I have no idea what this was. It looks like just dish soap, maybe, laundry detergent, but it's empty, which is maybe not a good sign. But there's thousands of bottles like this all up and down the coast, from small household chemical items to drums full of chemicals, big industrial sized drums.
Marine debris is not a new issue in Alaska, but the Japanese tsunami has magnified the problem many times over. Pallister says the tsunami debris doesn't have the visceral impact of the Exxon Valdez spill, with oiled animals and blackened coastlines, but he thinks in the long run it could be a bigger environmental disaster.
In a lot of ways, it's a lot worse than the oil spill, both in the geographic scope of it and the chemicals that are coming with it. And who knows what the impacts are going to be. And they're going to be really difficult to measure because they're spread out spatially. And, you know, it's going to be a very difficult scientific issue to sort that all out, I think.
Officially, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has only recorded 20 tsunami debris items that have landed in Alaska, but the agency will only confirm an object if it has a unique identifier that can be traced back to Japan. The state of Alaska does not use the same strict standard. Last summer, the state paid for an aerial survey to inspect 2,500 miles of Alaska's coastline. Elaine Bussey Floyd is acting director of the Division of Environmental Health. She says the survey identified tsunami debris all along the flight path from southern southeast up to Prince William Sound and out the Alaska Peninsula.
There was tsunami debris literally on every beach that was photographed. They took over 8,000 pictures, and it was more widespread and greater quantities than we even expected.
But so far, there has been minimal funding for cleaning up the debris. Governor Sean Parnell didn't include any tsunami debris funding in his budget. NOAA is figuring out how to distribute a $5 million gift from Japan, and Alaska's congressional delegation is working to get federal funds. But tsunami debris cleanup money was stripped from a bill for Hurricane Sandy relief that passed this week.
Look at this mess here.
Back on the beach, as the waves crash in, Chris Pallister says the debris could have serious impacts on fisheries and subsistence resources.
I don't know if it's being taken seriously enough. I don't think a lot of people that are going to be impacted by it know how bad it is right now. And until that gets out, maybe not much is going to happen. But I think we're kind of getting to the tipping point now where a lot of people in the state and federal agencies realize the gravity of this situation, and they're all working pretty hard now to get a handle on the scope of the problem and trying to develop funding sources. But as of yet, that hasn't happened. But it's a huge problem. It's going to take years to clean this mess up.
Pallister guesses it will take tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars to remove the debris. On this day, though, he has to leave it all on the island.
All right, we better go back.
Okay. We take off in the helicopter and head north along the beach. Pallister looks out the window at all the debris below and says it just goes on and on and on. On Montague Island, I'm Annie Fight.
Welcome back. Well, small craft advisories, higher gusts over the southern inside waters out to the coast. Storm warnings with heavy freezing spray warnings up over the northern inside waters. And then on Tuesday, bring it down a little bit, probably just gales now over the northern areas. Still looking at the cold air for the freezing spray up in those areas. And higher gusts, 20 to 25 knots sustained. Higher gusts coming out of the bays as high as 40 knots. Lighter winds down to the south, a little more easterly here, but not southeast. So don't look for a lot of warm air to come in on those winds from that direction. For the North Gulf Coast, northeasterlies, 25 to 30 knots from Prince William Sound. More northerly on the direction here, Kodiak Island, northeast 25, about like today in Chillicothe Strait, some higher gusts, and northeast 20 to 25 in Cook Inlet. For Tuesday's outlook, northwesterlies here, 20 to 25 knots across these Kodiak marine zones and the Barren Islands, northeast 20 for Cook Inlet, 15 knots coming down there for Prince William Sound, but you're still going to carry those higher outflow wind gusts from the bay, especially through the Copper River Delta. But for the North Gulf Coast, coming down to 15 knots. For Bristol Bay, small craft advisories tomorrow. Same thing for the Alaska Peninsula, as well as the waters southwest of Kodiak Island with freezing spray, heavy freezing spray, and freezing spray there on the Pacific side. And then for Tuesday, light winds for Bristol Bay, still northeast, but down to 15 knots, and we'll continue the small craft advisories here. Northerlies for the Alaska Peninsula with heavy freezing spray continuing there on the Bering Sea side. Light winds from Sitkinak over to Chignik. For the eastern Aleutians, gales, northeasterly gales coming down to small crafts here over the central Aleutians. Very light winds here under high pressure out over the western Aleutians. That's going to continue through Tuesday. Change direction a little bit there, but barely even a breeze there, west 10 to northwest 15. Then gradually picking up here as you head east to small craft advisories across the Fox Islands, which of course is down from the gale warnings that you'll have tomorrow. And then for the Bering Sea, or first for St. Lawrence Island, light winds there. Light winds also here for the St. Matthew Marine Zone, northeast 30 out of Kuskokwim Bay, right down across the Pribilof Islands. And then for Tuesday, light winds up here around and west of St. Matthew Island, but picking up to 20 knots along the southwest coast there. And still small craft advisories, heavy freezing spray, now restricted to this area and over to about the Pribilofs, northerlies 25 knots. Seas probably not quite 13 feet, more in the 7 to 10 foot range there. And for the Arctic coast on the east side, again, the windiest conditions possible there. At times up to 25 knots from the west-southwest, but dropping back northwest 15, maybe northerlies 20 for those western capes out here, and then light northwesterlies across the Chukchi Sea. And for Tuesday's outlook, northwest 15 to 20 knots, a little bit of a pickup here, but nothing too spectacular. Light northwesterlies along the western and central Arctic coast. And then easterlies here, again, that front coming by Kaktovik there. Look for westerlies kicking up to 30, maybe 35 knots at times until that thing passes through. And for tonight, watching some moisture trying to slip up into the southern southeast coast. That's going to overrun the Arctic air down there and could result in some snow, more extensive area of snow here from the Wrangell Mountains down into the North Gulf Coast. Some of that's going to slide into Kodiak Island, just some skiffs of light snow. This stuff will be out of the area in a few hours and just high pressure, clear skies, but gusty winds, the southwest valleys into the Copper River Delta, Prince William Sound area. Gusty winds also here out over the southwest. And for tomorrow, still some snow around the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound areas, and there's the outlook for.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.